Welcome to the Coach Harp Show. Today we have a very special guest. He's a veteran from the U.S. I want to say congratulations for serving your country first, Tommy.
Well, thank
We
you.
have we have Tommy Haynes on the Coach Harp Show today. It's an honor to have you in our presence today. Tommy, let's share to people a little bit your background.
Okay, I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, but I've been living in Frankfort, Kentucky for 28 years. And it's been a great exposure and experience for me because, like you just mentioned, I was in the military 20 years, and then I came here, and I've been here now 28 years. So you can see that I've kind of split the time between both places. And in the military, I traveled quite a few places. And actually, I traveled to 32 countries in all, but not all of that was military. Some of that was competing in other countries. So it's been a great ride.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for all the service you have done. What I want to ask you is, when you're growing up, how was your childhood?
Well, we was probably a lower income, middle class family. My father and mother dropped out of high school in the 12th grade and started a family, but they were very hardworking individuals. So that's where I got my hard work from, because I started working when I was 10, just sacking groceries at the store. And by 14, I was down at the Greyhound bus station washing dishes. And by the time I became a senior in high school, I was offered to be the manager of that Greyhound bus station. So growing up, we didn't have a lot, but what we had a lot of love in the house. And I found that means more to me than, having a lot of things. There's things rust, tarnish, get old, you get tired of them. So it's one of those that the family grew together. My mother was always disappointed because she said I never had a bedroom because we lived in a 2-bedroom house, and I had 2 sisters. And so my mother and father was in one bedroom, my sister was in the other one. And I had a fold-away cot, but I kind of liked that way because I didn't have to make up the bed. I just folded up, put it in the closet, and I was off to school. So the thing that bothered her, later on in life, I told her that really didn't bother me, and it was a blessing because all I had to do was shake the rugs and take out the trash.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That gives a good insight of your childhood. How was your school growing up?
Okay, actually, they started integrating the school when I got in the 7th grade, and so a lot of people that lived across the street from me went to one school, and I had to go to another school, and that was different at first because it's not that the blacks and whites didn't get along; we just didn't know each other. So when we first got there was a lot of fights and stuff after school, but sports kind of brought us around because I played football when I was in high school. And I wasn't very good because I wasn't very big, because I was about 5'5" at the time, about 120 pounds. But of course, over a period of time, I grew to 5'10" and about 160. And I became a decent athlete because I started off on a team called the Hogan's Heroes. This is where you don't get in the game unless the team is winning by a lot or they're losing by a lot. But when we go in there, we showed out. We would do our little stances. We make motions that normal people don't make, but we want to make sure everybody saw us out there. And quite a few people from that team developed into very good athletes later on, because I actually really thought I was going to be a football player instead of run track, because in high school, I just ran track to stay in shape for football. And later on, I became the quarterback, the captain of the team. And we went 8-2 record-wise and went to a bowl game. I went on and even made the All-Star, which is the Kentucky-Tennessee All-Star team. Now I played defensive back there and a little bit of wide receiver. And on that same year, I went to the Junior Olympics. So it's one of those, it had all these people from California and everywhere. Well, I got 5th place in high school at the state meet. So no way I was expected to win. Long story short, I won the meet. It rained and everybody else complained about the rain. But where I came from, we didn't have any nice runways and stuff like that, and rain didn't bother me. So I was really surprised to win that meet, and that's when I got some attention as far as track and field.
I like how you said the rain, because usually when people look at rain, they say, "Oh man, a true athlete will play in any condition in any weather." I also want to mention to you, you played football, so did I. It's the brotherhood, it's the adversity that we get from the game, and how
Yes,
we're able to still stay in contact with our friends over the years. It's a
yes,
blessing.
it is. As a matter of fact, I
Now, when you
still
play,
go ahead. Go right
no,
ahead.
no, no, continue on.
I was just going to say, I
No, no, go
still
ahead. You
am
said
in
something.
contact with some of those people, and we'll probably get to it later. But it's kind of like the military; it's the camaraderie. I still stay in contact with those people. It's the Olympians and the non-Olympians, the ones that just competed. We still stay in contact. And one good thing that this book has done by going out on a few of the Facebook and people sharing it, I've heard from a lot of people that I hadn't heard from in many years, and they just want me to share that story more because they remember me as I was developing. And they said for somebody who was not on a scholarship when he went to college and to become not only a pretty good athlete, but to break the school record, to break the NCAA record, to break the American record, to go on and make the Olympic team, they just said that that's not possible. But I feel that's a time for me to give my witness because, I had the faith and I knew the Bible said you had the faith of the mustard seed, you can move a mountain. So I saw a lot of mountains of my own that were moved out of the way, and it wasn't me. It was through prayer and people before me that prayed for me because I came from a family that nobody went to college. I was the first individual from my family to go to college. So it's one of those, when I told my father I was going to college, he said, well, I don't know how you're going to go because I don't know who's going to pay for it. That was his response. He was supportive, but he just wanted to let me know he's not going to be supportive financially because, he's worked too hard for what they have, and that just wasn't something that was high on his list. So I was very fortunate to be able to go to college, and I actually had to work. And like I told you, working was no problem for me. They didn't have any scholarships when I went to Middle Tennessee for track and field. So I told the guy, I'll do anything. I washed the dirty track clothes. That was my job. But none of the other athletes knew I was one washing them. They didn't find that out till years later when I told my story. But when I was over there washing clothes at the huge wash and dryer, I was able to get either extra workout in, get my homework done. It actually ended up being a blessing. So it wasn't a curse that I had to work. It just actually gave me an opportunity to exceed.
Thank you for sharing that. What made you go into the military?
Well, actually, Vietnam was going on. I went to college in 1970. Vietnam was going in heavily strong, 68, 69. It was mandatory that you take ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps, for 2 years. I took it those 2 years, and then the next semester, I was going to not take it and drop out of it, but it made me think about it. That's a guaranteed job when I leave college, which is what people look for. I would go in as a second lieutenant, which is an officer, and it's, for sure, that's a for sure thing. Otherwise, I'm going to be in with everybody else with resumes and looking for jobs. So that's the reason I went in.
Can you share some of your stories? Like I know you gone to 32 countries. Is there any good stories that you could share with us today that really still sit with you?
Well, I can tell you one story that's actually in my book, and it's the shortest chapter. It's only 2 pages long, and it's called the aha moment. That was the time when, I was in college, and I was doing what all college people do. I'd party on Saturday night, but every Sunday, I was walking to church. And one morning, it was raining again. I got my umbrella, I'm walking, and I said, God, if you're really real, and I believe you are, if you could just give me some kind of sign, show me, because I feel like I'm doing all this. I want to make sure my heart is right. Well, within 6 months, I was selected to go on a trip to Africa, and 16 of those countries was doing that trip. And it was a missionary trip, and we actually ended up in Tel Aviv, Israel. And when I was at it's either Red Sea or the Dead Sea, the one of those that had so much salt in it you could float in it. And that wind came across, and it brought to memory back what I had asked him, if you're really real, give me a sign. And it brought chills to me. And I said, from that day on, I never doubt you again. And I didn't. And that's when things took off. Also, my athletic career, because that was back in 72. So, I hadn't made the Olympic team, hadn't won in the NCAAs, hadn't done any of that stuff. And one other thing, while I'm on that, in '72, I actually tore my ACL. And it was one of those that looked like it was going to be over with. It was my jumping leg. And I said, Lord, if you can just give me, enough strength to get this leg, well enough so that I can stay on scholarship, because my second year I did get a scholarship, I would be so blessed. And I guess he told me, you don't know who you're talking to. You asked him just to get well to do this thing. And that came back to memory when I was at the Olympics. And I said, well, what a mighty God we serve, that he not only honored my request, he showed me that I was asking for something too minor to him. So it was one of those, and I share that story because a lot of times, people give up in the midst of adversity, and that's not the time to give up. That's the time to, dig deep and say, who are you? Who are you really? Because when I talk to people, and I do a lot of speaking engagements with like Kiwanis and Rotary and the churches here, when I start off, I let them know because they read all this laundry list of stuff, and I say, well, first of all, I'd like to tell you that people ask, who are you? I say, who I am is I'm a child of God. Everything else is what I do. I said, and I thank God for the things he's allowed me to do, and then that's when I expound on the things that they brought me there to speak on.
Thank you for sharing that. Well, I want to also recognize you. You won a silver in the 1975 Pan Am Games. How can you share that experience with us?
Yes, I can. And one right before I won that, I had broken the NCAA record indoors my senior year. And what happens when you break a record? The whole meet stops. Not the whole meet, but for your area stops. They bring out a measuring tape to make sure, they said this might be a record, and to do it. Well, that had happened before, and that's the only time that it happened. Well, when I was down in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, I broke the American record. And that's when they had the meet stopped. And I knew that this must be good because meet don't normally, the Philippines don't stop, or the triple jump didn't stop just to be stopping. It ain't like the officials are tired or the athletes want to take a break. So my coach yelled at me. He said, you don't know what you did, do you? I said, don't have a clue, coach. He said, you just broke the American record. And then that's when I fist pumped and told him, because he's the one that got me triple jumping, because I came there as a long jumper. I had never triple jumped before. So he took me from ground zero to where I was, and I think he was as happy as I was.
That's an awesome story, because reason why, as an athlete, especially with what you did, congratulations. To me, it gives me chills to have you on the show, especially with the Olympic. As we're talking about the Olympics, did you come across Jesse Owens, any of those guys?
I did. Jesse Owens, I've been fortunate to be inducted in the 3 Hall of Fames, New York, Tennessee, and Kentucky. When I was in New York, I actually won the long jump and triple jump at the national meet 2 years in a row. And they said that even winning it once, that had not been done in 50 years. And he happened to be there at the end of the night where we had the banquet. And I went over and went to, I didn't know whether to call him Jesse, Mr. Owens, sir. I just said, how you doing? It's good to see you. And he said, hey, Tommy, how you doing? So I was really surprised when I said, he knows my name. Now he probably has a sidekick that's telling everybody to come, but it didn't matter to me. He knew my name. And he said, you kind of remind me of myself. And I told him, I said, if I can do half as much as you've done, I said, I'd be more than blessed, more than satisfied. And he just was a very good encourager, and gave me that time for that period. And I just couldn't believe I was seeing a guy that I had read about, seen on TV. They made movies about him, and to see him in person, that was definitely one of my highlights.
I haven't met him. You met him. That's awesome. I read about him, and for having you, I feel I'm touching him through talking to you, and I feel that's very great. As you're going through the Olympics, did you meet any other people going through the Olympics at the same time, that Pan Am, that you might want us to talk about?
Well, actually, a couple of them, and I start off about the Pan American Games because one of my boxing heroes is Sugar Ray Leonard, and he and I became very close. He won the gold medal in Montreal, and I had met him the year before, so it's like we already knew each other. And what happened after the Olympic Games, I went to the White House, and some people escorted me upstairs, and I didn't realize that they thought I was Sugar Ray Leonard. And when I look in the yearbooks, our Olympic books, he and I did favor because we had about the same amount of hair, little fro. We was about the same height. We had about the same body build. And it wasn't until I got to the top of the thing I could tell when the guy was talking. I said, "You do know that I'm Tommy Haynes?" He said, "You're not Sugar Ray Leonard?" I said, "No, but I said, I know him. I can go get him from him." He said, "No, you stay right here. We'll go get him." They didn't want that getting out. And that was just one of those things that was humorous to me. And I got the best treatment of the house because they didn't want to have it out that we all look alike. That wouldn't have rested well in the newspaper. So, but when I was at the Olympics, a person tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You mind if I have lunch with you?" I said, "Oh, no, not at all," because I was eating alone. Ended up being Wilma Rudolph, my other hero. She had polio and came back and made the Olympics, broke all these records. And I just enjoyed talking to her because, she went to Tennessee State. I lived 3 miles from Tennessee State growing up. So, I heard all about her and in the accident, break bread with her, have a meal with her. That was one of my highlights of the Olympics, other than the opening ceremonies. The opening ceremonies, I haven't been to heaven, but I felt like heaven must be like this. All the different languages, people from all the different cultures, everybody happy and smiling. It was just such a moment that it's one of those, it's almost indescribable because it's a feeling that you get when you just look and see, boy, look at everybody getting along. But of course, every year there's something, protest or something going on that goes with the Olympics.
Thank you for sharing that story with Jesse Owens and Sugar Ray Leonard. Are you still actively involved in the Olympics by coaching, or are you retired now?
Okay, I just recently retired from coaching and officiating. I officiated track meets, locally in pretty much the whole southeast part of the United States. And I coached here locally, and we won a couple of state championships here. And I just recently helped out with a local university, Kentucky State University. Cecil Ward was coaching there, but he just went home, so they'll be looking for another coach there. But people come to me, a lot of times I just give them advice because instead of training athletes now, I would rather train coaches because I realize that coaches can affect a lot more people. If I train one athlete, that athlete will do well, but we need a team of athletes to do well. And I've been blessed to train some people that wasn't even interested in track. One guy was a basketball player. I told him, I said, "Come here, I need to talk to you." I said, "I need you to come out the track." He said, "I don't run." I said, "I didn't ask you to run." He said, "You told me to come out the track." I said, "I want to teach you the high jump." He said, "I've never done it before." I said, "That's why I want to teach you." Long story short, that guy went 6'6" in high school and got a scholarship, went to the University of Kentucky, went over 7 feet. Same thing with a guy that was here on a middle distance runner. He wanted the pole vault. They didn't have the pole vault. We had to borrow pole vault poles from other places. That young man not only became a pole vaulter, he got a scholarship down at the University of Louisville. You know who the happiest people were? Their parents. They were gonna have to pay for that. So now that, even if they don't get a full scholarship, they get that ride. And I think that's what I try to create in people. Just, you got to have some desires, and, you got to have, I heard many of your shows, people have to set goals, set some goals. The way I did mine was a little different because I was all about improving, constant improvement. I know you always talk about consistency. Mine was make sure I do the best I could. Then the next time, do the best I can. Next year, do the best I can. And that's why they layered up, because everything was always trying to do better than I did last week, better than I did last month, better than I did last year. And those things are just accumulated. Because you start, after a while, you get to the point where you're looking at very small things. because I remember one time I ran a 100-yard dash back in the day, and when 9.4 was a good time, the winning time was 9.4. I ran a 9.4. I got fifth because it was like 9.4.2, 9.4.3, 9.4.4, and I said, this is not my event because it's too many people that's in those milliseconds. I said, I need to find me an event that I can at least feel like I can have some improvements there, and the triple jump was my way.
You found your happiness. That's good. I want to maybe if you could share this more to the audience that play amateur football. Can you just give a little bit why is track so important? Because some of them don't want to do track, but maybe give your input of why track is important for a football player.
Well, track is important for a couple of reasons. One, track is an individual event. Football is a team event. If you want to get faster, you want to get more explosive, you learn how to do that by running correctly. That's why a lot of I have trained some professional football players. They're retired now, but I trained them because they need to know how to explode. You know yourself, if you play football, it's a 40-yard game. That's all you need is explosion for 40 yards. If you can catch somebody within 40 yards, they're not going to break away from you. So we were teaching them to come out, and when they go to the Columbine camps, they're timed in the 40-yard dash. So, we try to tell them about how to explode, how to get in a running posture, how to finish the deal at the end. Because, you're talking about tenths of seconds. People are running those and say 4.7, 4.5. Even linemen's running 5.1. I said that gets them a lot of energy. It also helps because when you're talking about the explosion, one of the ones they try to see how high you can jump. They tip those, that helps for that explosion. They also teach a lot about stretching and flexibility. And see, a lot of football players get hurt because they stay in the weight room, they get all their muscles nice and tight. But nice and tight, it's not going to work if you take it beyond what it's used to. That's how you tear things. I was kind of disappointed to see one of the Pittsburgh Steelers go down with a pec. And I know if it's just tightness, those areas got to be stretched out. Because you can be the meanest beast on the field, but if you're injured, you're not playing.
Thank you for sharing that, and I hope a lot of the audience who listen to that understand why track is important. Stretching is very important because when you lift weights, you get very compact and you get tight.
Yes.
That's where injuries start happening.
That's right.
How has your family life been? Maybe give a little bit where that is right now and how blessed you are.
Hey, I am so blessed. I have to say, first of all, my wife was the strong one that kept the glue together. We were married 46 years. She died of cancer about 4 years ago. But we have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. The 2 boys are both engineers. One's an electrical engineer. The other one's more in HVAC, the heating and air conditioning part out at an airport. My 2 daughters are both doctors. One has her own family practice down in Daytona Beach, Florida, and the other one's in Tampa, Florida as a chiropractor. But, those are the highlights. But I can tell you about each one of those kids, they had times that wasn't where they were. We had teenage pregnancy. We had some jail time, possibility for both the boys. We had depression that hit, but we worked through all of those because one of the things that I have been blessed with is having a positive attitude, because even when I ran for mayor, the biggest thing was positive change with Tommy Haynes. Because I believe if you can keep things positive, because God is way powerful than any of your circumstances. So we can work through these circumstances. And one of the things that my daughter told me she had some depressed moments. She said, my dad never looked down on me. He just said, well, we're going to see what we can do to get you through this. And when you get through this, we'll get through the next one. And now she's actually authored a book on depression because she's a medical doctor. And she said a lot of doctors, actually commit suicide because they spend so much time taking care of patients, they forget about taking care of themselves. And so that's been a way that she could share, her experiences with others. And that was also one of the encouragements of me writing a book, because people keep saying you need to tell your story, because I had people in my own family that didn't even know I'd been to the Olympics. But that's because I was in the military 20 years. And if they were 5 years old when I left for the military, they would have been 25 when I got back. Probably won't even remember who I was. So it was one of those, the book kind of brought some people together. They want to see, oh yeah, we remember now, people talking about him. But, he was always on the go and always moving. And I always think about, next step. Each day I try to improve who I am. I want to be the best Tommy Z. Haynes I can be. And the book has just given me some more opportunities, to go out and speak to groups. And I've just got offered to come down to Tampa, Florida to speak. I'm in a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and they want me to do a book signing, during their conference. Excellent opportunity to also praise the Lord. It's one of those that, I don't have to beat anybody in the head with Bible verses and all that and say, let me just tell you about my experience. And I said, I can't tell you that everybody's going to make an Olympic team, but I tell you what, you put in the work, you trust, and you work hard, it'll happen.
Exactly what you say, trust the process and have faith.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any advice that you want to give the audience that maybe some adversity, especially dealing with their wife when she went through cancer, a lot of people go through that. Is there any message you want to leave to the audience? You want to share it with us today?
Okay, of course, a couple of thoughts come to mind because what I tell the young people right now is find out what really, what makes you tick. What is it that you feel like that everybody's got a gift. And you're good at something. Find out what that is and find out if you can create a career with that gift. Mine, I used to jump all over the house. Got in trouble, said, quit jumping. Quit. That gift got me a lot of places. When my son was kind of didn't know what he wanted to do, he went in the Army for 4 years and came home and sat around the house. And I said, wait a minute, you doing what I want to do. You sat at home doing nothing, waiting for the next meal. I said, what do you enjoy doing? He said, I like working with my hands. I said, what kind of stuff? He said, well, like generators. I went to a technical school and asked them what they had, and they had heating and air conditioning. They didn't have it where I was, but they had it in Lexington, which is not far. I gave him the forms. Next thing I know, I saw him filling them out, and the rest is history. And that's how I had to walk each kid, through the process of saying, okay, what is it you want to do? My daughter, who's a medical doctor, she from a young kid, because they were checking her for lumps and stuff, and she didn't like the way the person wasn't personable. It was just like, check you out. She said, I want to be a doctor, and I want to treat people the way they deserve to be treated. And that's why, she has a direct care facility, and been down there about 15 years. And I hear her customers telling me how great my daughter is. And she had to do a lot of telephone care with COVID, being around, and she's going around speaking at universities. Matter of fact, she just asked me if I would fly down in October. She's receiving some kind of award. And I make sure I try to give each kid some time, and we get together for holidays and try to find out where everybody is at, because I also have 4 grandkids, 3 boys and 1 girl, and want to keep them on track because they're in a different time period. And I know that most of the people you talk to in your shows, they talk about mindset, you talk about mindset, and you are right. A transformation of the mind can transform your heart, can transfer your direction, and take you much farther than if you don't think about it and don't set your mind and just go with the wind. Because I always tell people, believe in something or you will fall for anything. So, I'm trying to get people on a track. It doesn't have to be the same track I was on, be a different track. Because, people don't go in jobs and stay 30 years and retire now. They move around. So they got to have that flexibility to move and have a variety of different things that they can accomplish and things they can do.
Thank you for sharing that, Tommy. If someone wants to get hold of you, what are some of the ways?
The email is probably the fastest way because I can read those on my phone. My email is tommyzhaynes@gmail.com. The book is Tommy Z. Haynes at the bottom. I do have Instagram accounts. One of them wasn't working, but all of my tags are at Tommy Z. Haynes. So it's one of those that I found there are a few Tommy Hayneses, but I haven't found any other Tommy Z. Hayneses. So that's been one way that I've been to keep things straight from that, because it's been a professional football player, a musician. Tommy Haynes, it was kind of nice going down the road because people were typing in my name One time I was actually I was in Jamaica, and somebody was saying that the guy over there was in the Olympics. He said, no, he wasn't. So he said, well, put up his name. And I saw the guy over there, and I saw him doing like this and looking at me. And I said, what are y'all doing? I said, and they came over there. So we all got a big laugh, sitting around a bar way in another country, and somebody's bringing up something like that.
Thank you for sharing that, Tommy. You gave a nice advice. I want to share something with you, what has changed my mind over the years. I read a book, and the book I read at the age in my 20s, and the book was called Hung by the Tongue. It's very careful of your thoughts. Watch what happens, and once you put it out into the universe, it will happen, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
So very important to control the thoughts. We have 1,000 thoughts going in our head. The moment we speak it into existence, it happens, and people wonder why what's happening. Well, let's go back and see how you speak. If you have an opportunity, Tommy, that's the book that you should look at, and everyone watching the show, go out and get Tommy Haynes' book. You'll learn so much about him. He's shared his social media handles here. She showed his email. Give him feedback on his book, because we need to recognize all the good people do in the world here. 20 years of service. Wow.
Right. And I noticed you're coming out with...
That's the book.
I was just showing you the cover, because I know you're coming out with a book soon. I'll tell you, those people, the designers and stuff, do an excellent job capturing things. And I've seen other people on your show, and you're doing a fantastic job. I hope you get to that 100 session show.
Yes.
The target, because I believe in setting targets. And when I see people that set targets, I said, okay, they've got a goal. Just about a lot of people talk about grinding, and you're saying you're right. Grinding is not a bad word. Sometimes you have to grind, but you come out of that part. Like you said, and I like all the things. I've had some failures along the way, but those are just ways to improve. Another opportunity to excel. That's just let me know that, okay, there must be another way of doing this thing. So and that's part of the positive twist I put on it. And I see that you do a lot of that yourself, in your upbringing, and just what you're doing now. And I applaud you.
Thank you, Tommy, because my platform here is to get you what you deserve, the hard work you have put in for the Army and the stuff you do with your children. People need to hear this stuff. It's really, really important. And one of the things is, remember, this is not just a stagnated relationship with you and I. We will continue on. We're becoming friends, and we'll keep in touch. We'll share stories. And one day, maybe in season 4 or season 5, I'll get you back on the show again.
All right, that sounds like a plan. I'm so glad you had me on today.
Thank you, Tommy, and thank you, Tommy Haynes, to be on the Coach Harp Show. Everyone watching the Coach Harp Show, stay tuned for more special guests in season 3. Thank you.